So me and the wifey just finished Mean Creek, and it's a good movie. It's a little old. You see, it was released in 2004, and you would know that because it's got Fat Josh Peck in it, and he's a bully, but he's also being bullied. It's a movie about bullying and kids being kids. We get to see their interactions and how they deal with the reality of what they did. You see, they drowned and accidentally killed Fat Josh Peck, and before you ask and get really mad, why do you call him Fat Josh Peck? What would you call him now, you jerk? Fit Josh Peck. And that's because I respect a man who takes care of his body. He's actually a childhood hero of mine, so I'm just poking fun. He's really a stand-up guy, and I remember Sun Tzu once said, "He who can laugh at himself is able to win 100 wars." Fat Josh Peck is a bully in the first scene of the movie. He beats up Rory Culkin over here, and the kids of his group, well, they come together with a plan to strip Fat Josh Peck naked, good luck with that, and toss his ass into the river and have him swim home. That was the plan until they realized he's just a dumb, fat, autistic kid with no friends.
Yum. Should make these yourself? You'll have to give me the recipe sometime.
It's peanut butter and jelly.
Bullying is a bad thing, and bullies are jerks. I would know. I was a bully, and bullied. Well, mostly bullied. Okay, just the bullied part. Even in my adulthood, I deal with this crap. In work, people, they assume roles and they're just jerks. Anyway, listen, there's always two sides of a coin. Usually the ones that are bullies are probably dealing with issues of their own and can't find an appropriate outlet to vent their frustrations. Listen, you gotta take things case by case as an adult. We're not meant to excuse Fat Josh Peck for beating up Rory Culkin, but we are able to understand his perspective, and I think that's important. He just wants friends, but he's too dumb and quick-tempered to get any. We see that in this movie, he was pretty excited to be called out for this little boating expedition. He even bought a nice little squirt gun for Rory Culkin as a birthday gift. Too bad for you, Fat Josh Peck. It was no one's birthday today.
Isn't even your birthday?
No.
Honestly, the acting in this film is pretty on point.
And I fucking hope they fucking die of fag disease. Yeah.
Especially that line. That line is great.
Yeah.
The general rule of thumb is that child actors are terrible. And to an extent, I want to say that's true. They're either typecast as a comedic relief, they're a dumb space filler, or just they can't act out of a paper bag and just drag the whole production down. But you gotta think, a whole movie of child actors? This thing must have stunk. Well, not exactly, and that's probably the amazing part. The acting is pretty good, if not just okay across the board. I think the girl here was a little cartoony at the start, and her and Rory Culkin's response to Fat Josh Peck's death was a tad, I guess the word would be melodramatic. I don't know, if I were in their shoes, in real life, these kids would be crying and flipping the fuck out, maybe shitting themselves. I don't even know, maybe that's just me. This movie as a whole was just kind of weird, and I didn't really expect much out of it. That's probably why I enjoyed it. It's just a small micro story. You see, they plan a trip, and there's this clear sense of a build-up. Then you have the payoff, which is the death part, and a morbid end with like the murderer crying as he robs a bank. This one scene didn't need to be here, but it was beautiful, and it was so simply shot. I wish more things were shot like this. His acting and gestures are so genuine, you don't need any dialogue. And say you were just walking past this 7-Eleven, this would be really realistic. That's really cool. I recommend this movie to anyone because it has a clear idea of who this movie is meant to target. And if you haven't guessed, that's kids. I like to reference Hayao Miyazaki and film critic Roger Ebert. Rest in peace, Roger Ebert. They had a discussion one time about the movie Spirited Away. It's one of my favorite films of all time. It's one of the best films in all of history. And it's an animated one. It was made specifically for young girls. It was supposed to be about like the symbolism of the trials of growing up. And since it gave a perspective of a child and their struggles, it appealed really heavily with parents. It reminds parents that their kids are going to have to learn things on their own and make mistakes and grow up. Maybe it'll teach parents to not coddle their children. Now, I'm going to take a step back. Why am I bringing this up? Well, imagine if you were Fat Josh Peck's parent. What feelings would you have if you knew your son was in this situation? You're looking at this on the outside in. To an extent, it's true. Fat Josh Peck brought this upon himself. And you get the idea that this was an honest accident. If you were Fat Josh Peck's mom, could you forgive the kids who confessed? Could you forgive the guy who pushed him in the creek? And it's morbid to think about. Now, if you're a kid in this situation, like the kids that are here, you're probably not thinking at all about Fat Josh Peck's mom. You're probably thinking about your own conscience. And also, not getting into too much trouble. You see, it speaks to different audiences differently because it chooses to aim towards one audience. And to me, that's a sign of a good movie. I do have my complaints, but I think they're just general nitpicks. Like, the camera quality wasn't that great, but hey, it's the mid-2000s. But I think even the worst type of cameras can be fixed with good lighting and good camera work. And this movie had both. There's no resolution, technically, at the end of the film, but that's also not necessarily a bad thing because it leaves enough ambiguous elements to keep you thinking. There might be an argument that this frog-dicked asshole over here is a little bit unrealistic. Like, he just comes off as a psycho emo kid. But listen, if you ever grew up in the early 2000s where this movie was shot, this kid was everywhere. A rebel white trash emo kid in the early to mid 2000s, that's like finding a Pidgey. They're everywhere. Overall, I give the movie an 8 out of 10. The numbers really don't matter. You get the idea that it was certainly good. Acting was a bit flat at some points, but I feel like the camera quality worked, the iconic scene,
And I fucking hope they fucking die of fag disease.
and just a slow and obvious buildup made for a great quick flick. It only clocked in like an hour and 30 minutes. There's also enough ambiguous details to keep you thinking after it's done. For example, it's really not smart to bring up a rape joke to the guy who was probably raped. They don't directly state it, but I mean, why else would he react that way? Just saying. It's a good movie. Give it a shot.